Hello, friend. Specifically, actually, hello, Ameth. You know, you asked me to do this. I can't promise you, mate. I can't promise you that I'll do this every day, but I'll consider it for now, and I'll do another bonus video on it anyway today, right? Since you asked me about it. Now, Ethereum 2.0 is live now, is it not? I think it is. And let's revisit the charts and take a look at Ethereum again. I've got Ethereum Classic, the original, the Satoshi's vision of Ethereum or whatever. So what have we got on the go here? Now, somebody came along and was disparaging towards me and said, "Oh, what's the point in that video? You know, you're just looking at the charts and telling us it's on the whatever. I don't know, or something. I can't remember. Was it this one or is it a different coin? Anyway, this is what trading's all about, and you can see that that's is how you do this technical analysis thing. That's what this is. Anyway, you can see in terms of the Ethereum Classic that we've not got the full measured move. Certainly, this is very extreme, and that have taken us all the way up towards, our 50% area there at $8.50. This is quite, or actually even higher, 8.65 or so, and that's still on the cards. It could still happen. Instead, though, what we've had is a sort of a so-called breakout from the symmetrical triangle, and what's it done is brought us up towards our previous highs at 750. So, is it fair at this point here to just kind of continue this line up the way, right, and then change this round and say, oh, hello. Look at that. That is more like an ascending triangle, perhaps. Now, so that means the downside targets could be in around about $6.60 or so. Upside targets in around about 7.55, and breakouts from this thing as well. Then I've got the same sort of target up towards the top side. Way bigger target towards the top side. This would take you all the way up to 618. This is a more statistically bullish pattern, and you can tell why, right? You know why it's more statistically bullish, because quite often in the making of these things, you've lived through a failed symmetrical triangle, like breakout wise, and it's turned into an ascending triangle with actual proper body on it, a proper shape to it instead, and then then it's more statistically bullish in a way because it goes up the way. And why would it also be another reason? Well, because you'd have a triple top at that stage. You're testing resistance several times, and then you're breaking it there afterwards. And that's how these things all tie together. A lot of people just look at these things and they think, oh, ascending triangle. Oh, that's more statistically more likely to be bullish. They're satisfied with that. They don't look beyond it. That's a totally fine way to trade. But if you want to know like the sort of the build up for these things and think about it a bit more, and I'm sure you would as well. Ameth, speaking to you directly here as a programmer and a coder, like as you're making your application, you start off and you get somewhere and you hit a bug and you feel like your development time, right? I've done coding myself in the past. You feel like it's like you thought you were getting to your supervisor says to you, how long will it be before you finished doing this? And you're getting up to this point, you say, oh, not long. And then you test it all and you find 7 bugs or something. It goes all the way back down. You think, oh no. Then it comes up to here and you're sort of more realistic about things and it goes down there to get where you were before. Then it comes up to here and you're like, yes, we're finally getting towards the end of this point here, and then I find another bug. But by the same token, it wasn't as bad as it was the first time. It comes down here and you're still making that progress and it's all realistic. You get up to that point again, and then your supervisor comes along and says, do you think you'll have it done by August like you thought initially after all? And then you're able to say at this point, I think I will, or whatever, because of the progress that you're making. Whereas if this was a symmetrical triangle and your progress only took you as far as here before you found a sort of a breaking, what do you call it, the bug when it causes a break, anyway, when you find a fatal error, and maybe you get a stack overflow at this point here and it takes you back down. If it comes in a symmetrical triangle, less likely to be so good. And if it's happening the other way, where the progress is always getting worse and you're always returning back to the starting point, square one, like a descending triangle, then that's the psychology there. That's how that works. So you understand that from life anyway. Just from these things, there's always a build up in these things and how it works out. So that's kind of what you're looking at here. Want to see the prices stay up above $7.20, essentially. If they're able to when we move back up the next time, really. If they are $7, I suppose, really, to be fair, if we move up again and come down and do this for a third round, and then have to try it on the fourth time for a breakout of this thing. But that's what we're looking at in the meantime. Overall, we've managed to maintain ourselves above the lines that we spoke about when we did the video last, above that $6 area. Things are all going really kind of okay with this one, and that's good to see. I'm sure the interest in Ethereum Classic will pick up with this interoperability, another coding word for you there, with the Ethereum chain. So yeah, if people are still mining this one and other ones are going to proof of stake, then maybe some of the mining power comes over here, and maybe that increases the security of the network and various other things, and it takes it more in line with what its original sort of mission would be, to be that Ethereum and whatever else. So maybe there's a lot of good stuff there to be had about this one, and this is what we're looking at in terms of this price action. If we look towards this high and the previous high, this didn't actually come in quite as high, so it's lower, just lower, wasn't it? Let's just make it bigger so we can see. Yeah, it was just lower, so you couldn't really say that this is divergent, as we're consolidating essentially. You couldn't really say so. Maybe there's a touch of this sort of hidden bearish divergence in that the stochastics went higher than it did previously. Maybe there's a touch of that. But if the prices had to come any higher than they were there, then there would have been quite clear bearish divergence on this thing, So overall, again, kind of we're just doing what has to be done and no more, just that and no more at the minute. Next time we do this, I want to see it do it without bearish divergence. Okay, so I want to see the RSI be respected by the neutral line, come up here towards the bullish control zone, and then move on up past the midpoint of the bullish control zone and past this previous high RSI here as we're going towards the upside with an uptake in volume. The volume looks like it's going up a bit at the minute anyway, just a little bit, but it oscillates or whatever anyway here. So want to see it actually have a decent volume spike like these sorts of candles, up the way at the same time, and everything come together so that it can have a breakout towards the top side, and that's what we'll be looking at. I'm going to go over to that wasn't versus Bitcoin, that was versus the dollar, by the way, all of that chat. That's why it's 6 and stuff. Looking at it versus the versus Bitcoin pricing. Now I'm going to be very brief about this, very brief, and I've not looked at this yet here anyway, so just let me be brief and let me get away with that if you don't mind. Yeah, but touch of bearish divergence here between this high and this high, and we've got a new lower low on the go here. Could this be turning around, or could it be a descending broad, and could it be some crazy thing here on the go here? Not really liking the look at that, to be honest with you. I'm going to take that off. But could this be a downward trend? Makes it quite crucial that we get above the high here. If it comes up here and puts in a lower high, then of course you've got the potential for a sort of head and shoulders type pattern here on this one with a downward sloping, so less effective neckline. You wouldn't necessarily get the full thing off the back of that, but you're looking at this, if it were to do something like this, it could take you down into the region of like, going past the previous lows. So you wouldn't want to see that happening, definitely not. So hopefully get things to turn around here and not become too wrong. But then again, of course, the volume, everything, it's just like the Tezos and stuff, because I know you watch those videos, Amith, but to everybody else as well. When you're looking at Ethereum Classic versus Bitcoin, it's going to get pushed around by the Bitcoin pricing quite a lot, as opposed to just being a singular pairing in and of itself that people are looking at. So there's dynamics there to be aware of. Overall, I suppose you could say that we're maintaining this overall upward structure of higher lows, and that's good to see in the meantime. And this bearish divergence maybe is played out in the sense that we've got a lower low here, because this isn't really necessarily the low, and this isn't necessarily really the high. Instead, this is the low, this is the high, this is the higher low, this is the higher high, and this is the higher low, in which case you're comparing this part here of the stochastics RSI and the DMI to over here in the DMI, stochastics and RSI. Then it's not bearishly divergent, and then you're looking towards this as a channel towards the upside instead in that way, and that's better than that other thing that was kind of drawn before. So that's what I want to see. This is doing quite well at the minute. Come up is I want to see it break above the 50 at 7,408 Satoshis, go up towards the 7,850 area for the 200 simple, and move towards the top side. Things to be bearing in mind in the 24-hour time frame, of course, is that there's this death cross here. This could be one of the short-lived ones, though. You never know. If I go back in time, do we have examples of short-lived ones? Like, yeah, just in this area here, if you want to look yourself, in July 2018, very short-lived. or was it not even actually, did it fully cross? Yeah, it did. Yeah, very short-lived one here, about 10th of August actually, got the date wrong. So let's just see if we can get a sort of short-lived death cross here on this one, looking down the way at the other moving averages. The death cross happened all the way back here on the 21st of March on the 12-hour time frame, and we're coming up here, kind of being supported by the 50. Can we move towards the top side? That'd be good to see. Let's jump on over to the sort of thing that's really quite curious at the minute. Now, if I do these videos all the time, I won't be doing them across all three coins either, I don't think. But I'm just trying to throw this out here as a bit of just because, like, I think you're a really great guy, so why not? Putting it on here like that and saying, like, let's just have a quick look and see, are we actually in a sort of downward channel at the minute, or is there anything else on the go? Is this more of a wedge? This is maybe more of a fallen wedge here. Yeah, it's more like that in a sense. So that would be a statistic, a potential reversal pattern here for us. Could potentially see that happening. What about the lows then in this downtrend? If we look at as this being overall being a downtrend, overall being a downtrend. Looking at the lows then, low, 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 and that's low, low, and low. So there's bullish divergence between these lows here, low and low, bullish divergence. And there's bullish divergence here as well. Is there just maybe it's actually just class works out as in this area to this area, bullish divergence, right? So that's good to see. ADX lines is way above 20 as part of this downward trend essentially, but will it start coming down the way, or will it even remain up there as the trend just turns around itself and moves towards the top side? I want to see the prices remain above this 28,000 above 28,000 area in general, as we look towards this area. And we'll have to be bearing in mind that if you are trading this profit taking, not financial advisor, no, that's financial advice, it would be coming in at 30,000, 31,000 for this area here. If we did get a breakout of this thing, it'd be a bit early for it just now, a bit early, but if it did happen over here, then you could be looking up towards 36,800 satoshis. That'd be interesting. If this keeps going down like this and turns into a sort of a descending triangle, using say the wicks here and just kind of looking at it like this way, then of course that's a statistically more bearish type pattern. And I spoke about this before, obviously, just there earlier on in the psychology behind it. There's not an awful lot of that psychology on the go. As you can see, we've only come down here and wicked off of this in this middle period and that. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily fair, but if it was, then you'd be looking down at 23,000. So that's why you don't want to see this break towards this side, break towards the downside. And with the bullish divergence that we have at the minute, I feel like that there's a good chance that we'll at least get a turnaround towards, say, the 21 moving average here on the daily time frame, as a midpoint here. This would be putting in another lower high, and only just coming up and really where the previous low was at 30,000. So there's that there to be had in the meantime. Let's see if we can get above 30,000 and move towards the top side. Then of course the previous high in there at this area of 32,000, the previous high to that at 33,000. Neither of those really are the previous high, so you really want to see that 35,000. And if we just borrow our measuring stick here and plop it here and then draw this over towards this side, then you could see this as being a sort of channel here. If it comes up and goes no higher, and that would be where you could consider fake out territory to be, and at that point you'd be above all of the moving averages and things like that. So you could imagine the sort of the FOMO and the liquidity coming back into play around that area. And then of course if that does break and it goes towards the top side and you just get a breakout of the channel in general, if this happens and it becomes like that, you could be looking up again towards 42,000, but perhaps then that's premature, and really you'd be looking more like, maybe it'd be more like 40,000 would be more realistic overall. But they're not even satoshis. What was I calling them? Did I call them satoshis? What are fractions of Ethereum called? Ethereoshis. I don't know. Anyway, that'll do for today. Looking at the oscillators, I said, the divergence and whatnot there, and we're looking here and looking at the highs in this one. There was this little bit of bearish divergence, just here between the last two highs, so that's an issue. Looking at here, there's not hidden stuff for us. And on the dollar pairing, we managed to avoid having sort of divergence quite, at this point here. Need to figure it all out, and we're below the 382. Want to see the prices obviously maintain themselves above $5.78. Breaking out below this area here, though, that would be your fake out territory on a measured move. If this were to break towards the downside, easy fake out easy, like turnaround point here would be at this 578 rather than getting the full measured move if that were to happen towards the downside. downside if you're looking at this negatively, and you know, towards the top side you're looking at various different things. But I wouldn't go for that directly towards $10. You know, that's a little bit outrageous in a sense, although you know it's possible, and that's where the 618 is. Instead, you've got the 50% retrace here, and then you've got, you know, just various areas like looking towards previous price action and things like that. Although, you know, it is $8.30 would be, you know, maybe what you'd look to. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next episode. I really appreciate you joining me. Hit that like, subscribe button, and all the rest of it. And yeah, I don't know. Let me know if you also want me to do daily videos on this. But I do 4 videos a day is anyway. It's a bit much. So I don't know if I'd be able to, but it's something to consider. I don't know. Maybe if I make them all a lot more condensed and shorter or something like that. I don't know. Certainly wouldn't be able to do like this much analysis on it. I didn't really look at too many things like did I look at whether or not these had crossed? Here, this is a 12-hour. I did, didn't I? I did look at this. This is crossed towards a death cross at the minute here on that one. Death cross there, and just coming in, got a golden cross coming up, 24-hour time frame, got a golden cross coming up here at the bottom of this. You know, it wouldn't be surprised to me at all to see all these things coming together, the confluence, perhaps, and have that happen, you know, perhaps. And then again, as well, as people who would call that a cup and handle. I wouldn't necessarily, not with this section on the go, and the volume signature is not quite right, but you know, it could be, you know, it could be. Could be. Doesn't even need to come the whole way down as far as there. There's a cross coming up though, so you could get a retest of that after as confirmation. Thanks very much. I'll catch you next time.